say this place has been abandoned? Zoe?
There's a lot more to bioterrorism than we thought.
Hello everyone, Anthony here, and welcome to another episode of the Let's Talk Resident Evil podcast. This time, it is a solo edition of the show. Not a normal formatted podcast, but more so of a my thoughts / review of the Not a Hero and End of Zoe DLC. So, as you know, I did stream it earlier in the week when it was released on Tuesday, and I want to explain some of my thoughts on the DLC itself, and I guess this will pretty much wrap up our RE7 discussion on these shows. We've talked about it before it came out with the trailers. We've also talked about it, after the fact and kind of our thoughts. So now, with the DLC kind of sinking in and me thinking about it for a few days, I wanted to give it some thought before I come on here and, blah. I'm streaming on, Twitch and YouTube. It is twitch.tv/Let's Talk Resident Evil. And also on the YouTube platform, of course, and it is actually over. Essentially, I wanted to kind of talk about, why this delay has been so long, and, why it's actually, taking some thought to actually get around this. So, Not a Hero DLC. We'll get into that first, because that was the big one that was delayed. But, the cool thing about the live interaction in this episode is going to be reading your comments. So if you want to put your thoughts on Not a Hero, what's going on Chris TV Live, any thoughts and stuff, I'll read it. This is for an episode of the podcast. So if you want your comment or question or concern to be read on the show, now's the time to do it, because here we are live. But I'll get into my opinion on this as we get some more people in the chat room. Again, you could download this on iTunes. Of course, it's Let's Talk Resident Evil and Let's Talk Resident Evil on Libsyn. Now, with Not a Hero, going into it knowing that this was delayed, we really wanted to see what the hell was going on as far as how they're going to take the whole Blue Umbrella approach and how Chris Redfield is going to be portrayed in this Blue Umbrella. I don't think that there's any actual what's going on, John Jerome and Dylan, but yeah, I don't know if there's any mention of it before going in of Chris's specific mission as far as why he's with Blue Umbrella and why he's still doing this task, or why he would even associate himself with this. Now, the DLC plays, of course, more like an action shooter game. It's not very creepy, as Lucas comes and torments your men that have gotten lost up to his booby traps, and you have to try to deactivate them and find your men, but also try to find Lucas and take him out for once, because, he's played with you several times throughout the game as Ethan, and you also have him in the tape sequences as well, the banned footage DLC. So he's been around for a while, and of course is kind of finishing up the final tail end of the character arc of Lucas and him being part of the family. It also explains how he was a scientist working with other scientists, but was also kind of controlling and manipulating these experiments in different ways. So that's kind of what he brought to the table. As you string along this path through Chris Redfield, you're just fighting really different forms of molded. I really don't understand why they just kind of kept the same enemies. There's some different ones, like the mama molded thing, and then you got the little explodey guys. Some of them are difficult in the fact that they're a little bit more spread out, and sometimes you do have to just run from the white molded, which are the ones that are like stronger. Unless you get the specific ammo to kill them, you can't really shoot them, so you're really forced to run. So this kind of Chris Redfield storyline has him shooting his machine gun or handgun, getting some ammo. I haven't tried it on a harder mode, but it seems pretty fair, and it just kind of reminds me of the survival mode and whatnot. It's like, it's really just Chris Redfield running around, and you don't know who's really talking to you, and you can read some of the files. Some of the files go into detail on the mission itself or these people that you're at. And Giovanni said, Neo Umbrella is better than Blue Umbrella. It's funny because I think both of them are pretty shit ideas in my opinion. I think they're both lazy. And the fact that it didn't explain either one is really disappointing. And I don't know if they're leaving it open for other games. I don't know if they have something planned for an 8. If they're like, oh, well, we're not going to answer because blah, blah, blah. I mean, I doubt that's the reason. I don't understand why Chris is involved in this directly and what happened to the BSAA. I mean, unless I'm missing it completely, I don't know. He wasn't with Blue Umbrella and Vendetta either, so that really, I don't know what happened. And he looks completely different, of course, so that's just something else. But the main thing here is the game has, the DLC has some kind of key system with finding the keys, of course, and moving along this path of trying to put on your mask. The umbrella suit that Chris is in has different kind of mechanisms for its armor, as far as breathing in the toxins of the virus or the actual enemies themselves. You can wear certain masks to add onto your suit and also acquire different guns and switch between ammos to actually help your situation. They just gave more questions. That's what Dylan said, but they did. I feel like they left a little bit more questions on who was his team. You didn't really care about his team. It's not like, again, he had an established group of people with him. It was just kind of Chris Redfield's team running around doing all that stuff. So I don't really know what the hell they wanted to kind of get across as far as, well, this is the newer Umbrella, and they mentioned, of course, they wanted to keep the name Umbrella to be reminded of the things that they did in the past and how they're trying to improve, which, again, I thought that was kind of lazy. Was the gameplay fun? Yeah, it was an entertaining, experience from front to back. It wasn't really like a drag or anything like that. I think the DLC, it really did kind of bring a different element of, where could we take the characters that people have been kind of waiting for and give as a spin. Again, I don't understand why it was delayed. I was kind of saying that while we were doing the live stream. I was just like, I don't understand why this was delayed specifically. Like, what was not really met to their standards? Because it seems pretty run-of-the-mill, in my opinion. Just kind of like a, point A, point B, grab a key, go here, and Chris Redfield's just shooting all the molded. I think Adam said, oh man, that sucks. Please, whoever is in charge of Capcom needs to be fired pronto. Well, here's the thing. Everyone's going to have their own opinion. I know people that actually thought the DLC was pretty decent. I had a bunch of people in the chat that were, during the stream, that were very mixed on it, but then I had some people that actually enjoyed it. So, to each his own, and of course, you're able to have your own opinion like everyone else. I thought it was fun, but at the same time, again, it did kind of bring more questions and answers as far as a Resident Evil fan goes, and also someone who's played 7 and try to make sense of between the main storyline and the DLC that we already had to pay for additionally. Obviously, this one was a free download, so if any of you guys actually want to check it out and you have RE7 or the Gold Edition, obviously you already have it, but it is free. It did bring horror back, I'll say that. Yeah, I mean, it if anything, it brought back a different sense of like you're not being really chased as much. You're Chris Redfield, so you're kind of and yeah, Dylan, I'm happy you waited for the gold edition as well. I told people before, just wait, just definitely wait and save your money. And I do think you get a decent bang for your buck if you buy the gold edition, again, at a little bit of a discounted price. The gunplay, yeah, I think the gunplay was definitely altered for Chris Redfield. I did notice that as well, because this was more of a shooting gallery of sorts. You definitely had to improve on how you were handling the gun. It was a little wonky in, Ethan's game playthrough. I don't really know how I feel about that in hindsight, because playing it, I didn't really think too much of it, but then you play this and you're like, wow, it actually is very, very different when fighting enemies and going from, point A to point B, kind of shooting at what you need to and running away from what you can. So it's a little different when it comes to, hey, Callie, woo! It's a little different when you try to have a different kind of, I guess, idea of where you want to take it. But again, I don't really understand why it was delayed. It's okay, DLC. It's nothing crazy. I am happy that it is free. At least they didn't charge anything for it. I mean, for free DLC, I got done with it in about like an hour, 40, hour, 15 minutes. You could probably even do it quicker without some of the death scenes that I ran into. And, it wasn't very challenging. But I think Giovanni said Capcom could have used Outbreak characters that could still be scared on what's going on in RE World. Well, I mean, the Outbreak is just another thing. In and of itself, it's just another thing. People that, people that like RE7 will probably like this one. It's not like it's for everyone. But this is what John said. He said, I feel like the biggest problem with Not a Hero was that it was Chris. If you put just a random soldier in there with no much story, it wouldn't be a big deal. That's actually a good point. If it was someone that was completely different, what would we really care? And it might as well be, because it's not really like they gave him much, like, I mean, they gave him a purpose as in, okay, Lucas is the objective here. Umbrella, they want in on this family. They want to stop this before it gets bad. I understand they have a chip on their shoulder, and Chris is just involved. But why? Why is he involved with Blue Umbrella? What the hell happened to BSAA? If anyone out there listening to this, whoever downloaded this or just streaming this right now, has any idea what the hell happened with BSAA, please give me an answer, because I apparently don't have one, and I don't really think. Yeah, this is what Dylan said. Chris joining Umbrella with no answers is what made me question that more than anything else. Yeah, I don't like, there's no substance to it. I mean, every time he was in a cutscene, I was intrigued. So I'm like, oh shit, cool, Chris is here. It's in a main game. This is cool. And then the cutscene would end, and I was just hoping like there was more cutscenes. Like, where's Jill? Why can't these characters be explained a little bit more and the situations that they're in? And yeah, Blue Umbrella is essentially supposed to be good Umbrella, or Umbrella that's trying to acknowledge their mistakes in the past. And that's kind of what they're doing. Chris TV Live on Twitch says, I feel they added Chris in the game just to appease the fans and wanted a familiar character from the series to return instead of having no characters being in it. Yeah, and just going back to what John said as well, on top of that point, Chris, that's the main thing. It's like they had nothing else after that. Giovanni said, I guess BSA disbanded after RE Vendetta. But again, why can't you explain that? I mean, you can't really expect people to just be like, well, after Vendetta, it's going to disband. That's not something someone would just think about. They would think Chris is still a part of the BSAA coming off of Vendetta, which, again, I thought was pretty decent for an animated film. It was actually one of my favorites out there of the three. But I also think that it's one of those things where I'm not going to be the one to say, yeah, this is something that is going to completely make sense for people that might play it over and over again. The answers just aren't there. The answers aren't there, and they're sure as hell not going to be there anytime soon, depending on where they want to take the whole Not a Hero thing. That puts a tail end on the whole RE7 game as a whole, killing off Lucas. This kills off Lucas, and the end of Zoe kills off Baker. Jack Baker, of course. And I think they have, they have some different things that they're trying to do with End of Zoe. But as far as Not a Hero DLC, to sum it all up, I personally think that it was okay. I mean, it was free, and definitely check it out if you're a fan of RE7. You might like it a little bit more than I did. I thought it was a little bit repetitive with the enemies, just like RE7 as a whole. I mean, as a whole, I had a problem with the enemies in the game. And as you play through it more, then it doesn't really help that. So John said, from Chris's statement in the elevator, it sounds like the BSA are still around, but guess they wanted nothing to do with this one. I thought one of the members of Chris is still a BSA, but assisting Bloomberg. Maybe, you know what? The Rush 420. I like the name, by the way. Maybe you're right. Maybe they did mention that. It's not like I got every memo. If anyone got any kind of file or read something, let me know, because I want to know these things. I didn't do a complete playthrough where I found every single file. I did try to thoroughly search each area, but I guess we'll see. Nemesis to kill Ethan so bad. Yeah, Jack Baker was like whatever. I mean, the Bakers, in my opinion, were just kind of forgettable. They didn't really they didn't do too much for me. I get the appeal. I understand why this is a thing. And, I get they're trying to do this weird backwoods stuff with, the characters and make it so Evelyn is the source of all this stuff, and they got to try to contain the family or people of the family. I think that's fascinating. I think that people are going to sit here and wonder, where do these characters go next? I think getting that whole idea of like more questions and answers, and people going and trying to figure out why these things are happening the way they are, or maybe why it's so different. I mean, I think that's the main thing, is that you're going to have like different kinds of people that don't want certain things done with these characters, right? Or they don't want certain things done with the whole aspect of, maybe this is a point where we can't go on and continue to take out these characters of what we know and love. The memory start with an inventory. Okay, I did read that. Maybe I missed that. I know they explained why he was there, but there's definitely parts where people say, I'm gonna be one to say it here first. I know that this isn't for everyone, and I know that sometimes me talking about it can be a little repetitive, as far as like talking about RE7. Maybe people have tuned out by now. Again, I understand why people may feel that way. And again, I get why, there's different kinds of, there's going to be different kinds of people that may see it differently. It may be one of those things where you have people down the road may look back on it and they may feel different about it. But Chris TV says, I didn't mind the Bakers as characters, but I really do not like Ethan. He has a little no reaction to many things. Also, Resident Evil known as Tavern for cheesy dialogues, but Ethan's dialogue was just so poorly written. They didn't really do too much with Ethan, for sure. Alex Wesker should have been a villain for this game. They could have tied it in with the Weskers. I mean, the only real Wesker references are the guns here in this situation. But let's get into, Not a Hero DLC. That's kind of my opinion here. I usually don't give number ratings. I try to explain a little bit more than just narrowing it down to some kind of number rating. But that was just my opinion. It was meh. It is what it is, and it is free. A little bit more action-oriented. Could have been better. Really confusing story, though. Still doesn't make too much sense, and I just was really questioning it. And my one friend did play it as well. Shout out to Joe, and he played it. And I was talking to him about it, and I was just like, we're both Resident Evil fans, and I just commented on his Facebook post. I was like, I don't even know what the hell was going on here, and blah, 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 blah. And I kind of explained everything I just did, and it was just kind of very funny that we're on the same page with that. I mean, it means I'm not alone with certain things, and you guys make me feel like I'm not alone either with these kind of supporting opinions, and I'm not going crazy. So yeah, End of Zoe. Obviously, this is in the situation where, because the canon ending is when you save your wife and Zoe is left to die. And she's, she runs into Joe, the backwoods uncle or whatever the hell, and point one comes from Anthony playing it. Yeah, Giovanni give it a 0.1 out of 10. Well, there you go. You heard it from him. That's his rating. And yeah, she's this backwoods kind of, obviously finds Joe. And now Joe, when you play as Joe, Zoe, there's a cure, and the Umbrella Soldiers are in the woods that are with Chris's team, and they're trying to get a cure because they know where the cure is. How do they know about this cure? I don't fucking know. I don't know how the soldiers know where this cure is or where it's located in some specific lab. But they know where it is, and that's what Joe tries to get for Zoe. So capturing one of the soldiers, he tries to find out information, and it kind of goes from there. You start out in the hut, and instead of using guns, you use spears and your fists. Yes, your fists. You fucking punch the shit out of Molded and 1-2 punch them. This was a little irritating, maybe because I wasn't the best at it, but I also thought that, it was a little over the top. Chris TV said they brought the cure with them. Okay, so they did bring the cure with them. They were just trying to get it for Zoe, and then that's when all the shit broke loose. So they have the cure with them, but at the same time, you're trying to get this cure back from them so you could use it on Zoe. You use a little bit of it, but it's not enough. You need to find more. So you run around swamplands. You have, crocodiles coming out everywhere fucking trying to eat you. You got to use the spears to stab them, but you have limited spears. So you essentially have to try to find a balance between how many spears you can throw and how many times you can kind of run around and then, go around like that. Yeah, and then they moved it to where Jack was. Okay, so yeah, you do actually, of course, Jack is the swamp kind of monster thing that kind of follows you around. So like Ethan, like his storyline, instead in this situation, he is this big swamp thing, essentially swamp thing, and he comes and follows you, and, you can't really kill him, so that's kind of the rule with that. Yeah, Joe was actually trying to be Albert Wesker. That was his idea of him trying to do that, but Joe was, Joe's a character where, he has that kind of, funny attitude to him. He has a Baker kind of mentality, but he is against kind of what they're doing. He's not infected, so he's just kind of like, what the hell? Now, his thing is with health, you have to find bugs. You can eat the bugs, or if you combine them with chem fluid, that's how you get the first aid equipment, obviously. So you could find either eat the bugs, centipedes, whatever it may be, look behind trees. It's a very different way of playing. And again, you're not playing with guns, so you just have to punch the shit out of everyone. Duck punch, dodge, do different things, jumping, balancing. It's a little scaled back as opposed to Ethan's gameplay, where at least you get some kind of gunplay. But a lot of the times, this DLC forces you to kill off the enemies in the area before progressing. So you are going to run into a lot of problems. You may fail a few times, like me, especially. But if you're playing the harder modes, I could see that being a little bit more difficult. Joe himself, I mean, there's not much to him. It's just kind of, oh yeah, he was in the woods the whole time, not in the house, so that's why he's still there. Yeah, exactly. So the Rush said Jack coming back as Swamp Thing makes the hallucination scene with Ethan meaningless. Yeah, it does. Because this is apparently supposed to take place during that time between when Zoe leaves on the boat and says, I'm going to come back for you and send help. And this is a way of Ethan trying to send help at the end, after the fact, and trying to get her out of there and okay, which does end up happening, spoiler alert, but I'm sorry, if you're listening to this review and you're afraid about spoilers, it's going to happen, okay? I think that if people are going to go into this expecting anything completely new, it's not really. I mean, I kind of enjoyed the whole punching aspect. It was fine. When you first Jack Baker at the end, that's when it becomes a real pain in the ass, because you have to use this fucking, this biotic arm that you can put on that's a weapon from Umbrella, and you're using that to punch the shit out of him and charge punch. Yeah, I mean, if Joe did live, 3 years, that's what Chris brought up a point, if he lived 3 years out in the swamp after the outbreak happened, how did he just find out about it? And how the hell did Zoe even, I mean, yeah, how did he know where Zoe was? Or How did Zoe not even come across where he was living, and how far was he from this whole thing if he was close by most of the time? I mean, stuff like that, like, again, that stuff that keep you up at night. You don't know what the hell's going on with that. It's one of those things where, you know, that was Chris's phone. Maybe it is Chris's phone. Again, I really don't know. That's a good question. We're getting some good points across in the chat, so thank you guys for communicating and participating. Again, if you participate, your comments and stuff and thoughts will be read on the show. Yeah, Joe eats the bugs. That's his health, and that's how you find. So the way you could do it is if you don't combine the bugs with the chem fluid and just eat the bugs, they give you a shorter heal. If you do it with the chem fluid, it combines to a first aid, so it gives you a full heal potentially. And yeah, that's exactly what he does. He eats the bugs, and that's kind of what, you know. It's a different way because Joe just kind of uses his fists, and he has a lot of funny remarks for stuff. But again, do I really care about his character as much? Not really. I mean, is that Chris's blood? Yeah, it's a little strange. I found this one, it was longer. It was a little bit more frustrating. I definitely don't think it was worth the $15. It was probably worth $5, you know, probably free. Honestly, like, this shit shouldn't be charged. This shit should be in the game. Obviously, if you get the gold edition, you don't have to worry about it. But someone like me who got the collector's edition, I'll say this once and you'll hear me say it a million times, you spend almost $300 in a game, they don't even give you a season pass, and I gotta just buy all this banned footage shit and this just to stream it for you guys and talk about it. So is it worth it in that case? Yeah, but it's definitely not worth it if you already got all this fucking shit that I got. But yeah, they don't go into whether or not Joe is infected. That's another thing that's not really explained. They don't really say if he was infected or if there's any kind of cause for him not to be infected or how he wasn't connected with this family directly. And how is he just finding out about this outbreak? Again, I don't fucking know. You know, yeah, I know that's what they were. The molded were in this. Another thing in this one, that the molded were kind of patrolling around, and like, I kind of made a joke. I was like, what is this, Metal Gear? Where they're walking around, you can actually stealth kill them and snap their necks. But it's so weird because they never patrolled around in RE7. They just come towards you as soon as they saw you. So that is kind of funny. That's a good point. I really don't know why they did that. Whether or not, you know, they thought that was a cool aspect to add in there. Obviously, doing things stealth in his little story thing, it's easier than fighting them head on with your fists. So if you have a choice to do it, you definitely want to use your fist for that. Did he go to Thanksgiving? I don't know. That's a good question. Did he go to the Leatherface-inspired dinner? That is the real question. Was he invited? Was he not invited? Maybe we'll find out in the next one. I don't know. Maybe we will. I personally don't think that there's going to be any kind of, like, continuation with these characters, to be honest. I mean, I think they try to wrap it up here with the DLC, but I think this is enough. Like, I don't think we need to see any more, you know. Apex said, real question, who the fuck is Joe? Why would we care about him and his plight? He just kind of shows up and it really doesn't make any sense. That's true. I don't really think that there's some kind of like reason for him to go other than the fact that it's like, oh, okay, this is a reason for him to go save Zoe because all the bakers are all fucked up and infected, so yay. Adam says he much prefers the third person. He does not like the first person. Yeah, I know. Again, I know that was really kind of a deal breaker here for a lot of people. Yeah, Jack coming back, I was just kind of like, all right, well, let's finally finish this and beat the shit out of him. And he was a little difficult for me because I used a lot of health and I was underestimating his strength. When you have to use that big fucking glove, which is probably the best part of the whole campaign, because at least it's something different. But it is kind of over the top. Like, I was just like, I don't really know what I'm playing right now. It doesn't even feel like Resident Evil at times, you know, so, I mean, Giovanni, Gun Survivor seems more like Resident Evil at this point, so if they continue with the E-Virus in the future, she could have a place. Yeah, I mean, man, I don't fucking know. John says apparently Anna Zoe was the idea for RE8, so let's be happy this won't be the case. Was it? Was that the idea for Resident Evil? That's like, I don't know if I believe that unless there's some kind of hard evidence of that. That's very strange. That they were, if Capcom were actually thinking about making that a main fucking game, that's a little far-fetched. Yeah, I mean, RE6, they did try to they try to tuck away a lot of the story stuff with RE6 just to kind of ignore it. And what if they have to ignore this one? That's like, if they do ignore this one or they acknowledge it, that means you would either have to ignore or kind of acknowledge, but not sort of acknowledge, the past 2 Resident Evil games. So that really just doesn't make any sense. The first person is just an aspect that tripped the scales. Hector said, I think the story just wasn't explained properly. And so many questions left unanswered. Hopefully RE8 can make amends, but I hope it's not first person. Yeah, I mean, I think I know the first person was definitely a deal breaker for a lot of people, and I know it was the thing where people were saying maybe it was copying PT. I didn't really think it was copying PT. I think, you know, like, again, it was Sony offering them the VR and offering them a lot of money to put it out for the VR, and that's why we got a first-person game. And they essentially probably had the story, whether or not they wanted the story and the characters to be portrayed in that first-person aspect, I don't know, but they probably had the base story there and the characters, and then when they found out about the VR, they just centered the whole game around first person. Like, that's what happened. I mean, businesses have to make money, and that's what they have to do. Now, if they decide to do it with 8, that's up to them. You know, I feel like Deadass said, do you see Capcom making another Resident Evil main title in the entry first person, or do you think they'll go back to come back to the original trilogy formula? I mean, maybe if RE2 does well enough, maybe, but even then, like I said, if Sony writes the checks and they give them the money for it, you know, they're going to make it first person, man. They're going to make it VR. The next one, you know, or they may change it up completely. Maybe the industry's changed. Maybe VR won't be there. You know, I kind of agree with you, Chris. I didn't mind the first person as much. To me, I really wanted to look at the game from a different perspective. I do think some of the aspects of the fighting and combat is a little bit awkward in first person. You know, I feel like they just really have some kind of, like, I don't know, thing they're trying to do differently with the other ones. Yeah, Hector said 100% agree. If it was about the Sony deal, it actually is a way to provide feedback from Capcom what they can go with. Yeah, I mean, Capcom really should be more community driven when it comes to 8 and being, you know, what the hell is going to happen. But I mean, some people aren't even really excited for 8. They're just waiting for Resident Evil 2 remake. So at this point, it's just kind of like a give and take of, like, you know, what you would like to see, what you won't like to see. Is it worth it? Can we make it worth it? Is this going to be something that we can continue and bounce off these characters where this DLC leaves off? Or is this the tail end for good RE7 in the books and we might not get another game like this again? Who knows? I think it's interesting to kind of see where it steers and where it does end up going. Apex said the main problem was the lack of any real significant connection to the Resident Evil franchise. These DLCs really did nothing really substantial to help the unfinished project, or unfinished plot, rather. John said, I did enjoy RE7 and DLC. A lot of their fans complained, but we've had worse in the series. That's a good point. RE7 divided the... Mr. Unlamax said... I'm afraid RE7 divided the community. I don't think it's possible instead of being united. Oh no, man. I'm pretty sure they're going to ignore whoever the hell's in charge of Capcom right now. I'm going to listen to the fans again if they don't. Yeah, I think you know, listening to the fans, especially with Resident Evil 2 and the feedback that's going to get, hopefully, if it does come out, And, you know, hopefully it does come out. And if it does, and that does very well, then that's going to show you what your audience wants. We're in the era of nostalgia. I know nostalgia sells, so there's remakes, remasters, you know, they're doing what they have to make money. And I think it's going to be a great game as long as they like stick true to, again, what people love about that game. And again, listening to the fans, because they want a game that's really true to an iconic game like Resident Evil 2. And I think that's really important to remember. So, and of course, with this going on in the background and 7, you know, almost being a year old and finally finishing up, I think it's safe to say that they tried, they've succeeded in some ways, they failed in many others. And, you know, I'm not too sure where they're going to go from here. I mean, it's your guess is as good as mine. That's why I like doing the podcast. I like talking about it on the show and hearing everybody's kind of opinions and comments and concern. Because, again, we've been through peaks, valleys with this Resident Evil series while doing the show. I mean, we've been doing the show now for 5 years now, a 5-year show. 4 years, actually. 2013, January. So, you know, yeah, we're coming up on 5 years for the show. And when we started, you know, that's when Resident Evil was really at a standstill. It was after Resident Evil 6. There was a lot of talk about open world Resident Evil games, where they're going to take the series. Is it dead? Is it going to be rebooted? What's going to happen? There was a lot of questions around that time, and we talked about it back then. And anyone who's an OG fan, and I know not all of the episodes are out on iTunes and all the older ones. Maybe we'll work on getting the archives up for old time's sake. But I think that's one of those things where it's a very difficult time right now. There's certain decisions that a lot of these gaming companies are making where sometimes it can really divide the audience. You know, I think it's going to be a little time before, you know, they get this kind of thing back on track. No, yeah, they can't fuck up Resident Evil 2. Apex is right. They can't fuck up Resident Evil 2. I think it's beyond that. Adam said, well, then all they need is to make Leon and the others rusty again for the whole zombie biohazard business. Then bam, they can get scared and overwhelmed again. It's not that hard. Yeah, I think that sense of tension, that sense of being overwhelmed, or that, you know, that thrill isn't as prominent as it once was. And that was kind of wrapped in a present and given to you when you were to get a Resident Evil game, is not knowing what's underneath that and not knowing what's going to be unraveled as you go along. You know, it's just, it is what it is. I remember the rumor in 2012 being it first person. We also talked about that on the podcast as well. Oh, nice. John said, just want to let you know that the podcast got me through a plane from New York to Ireland. Well, that's cool, man. Ireland, hope you're having a good time if you're there now, or if you're there on vacation or you're visiting or whatever it may be. I'm happy that I got you through a plane ride. That's what these podcasts are for, to download, listen to while you're jogging, at the gym, traveling, driving to the bank, whatever people do. I don't know, but I hope some of the conversations and the theory discussions and the lore discussions get you through your daily activity and, get your mind thinking or off of whatever you're thinking about constantly, and just kind of enjoy the ride. And that's kind of what these conversations are about. And, just a little review. Do you think RE2 Remake will be the first person or third person? I think it's going to be third person. There's really no reason for them to do it first person, rather than to be fucking assholes. You know what I mean? Like, you would have to be some kind of asshole to be in charge of a project and to be like, you know what? You know this game everyone knows and loves, and, you know, all the fans that said something? Let's make it first person. That's not going to happen. It's going to be third person. I don't think we're going to have to worry about that. Everything else I think we have to worry about, like the game actually getting done. If it is in development hell, it's not in development hell. There's rumors, but I guess we'll see. You know, if there's no trailer by E3, I would start panicking at least a little bit, or even Tokyo Game Show for that matter, because that would be the next step after E3. Because PSX didn't do shit, and, you know, Capcom had their own stuff with Monster Hunter and everything going on, which, you know, Monster Hunter looks really good. I mean, it's not like Capcom has completely lost their edge with certain games, but a lot of them people have lost faith. So with the DLC coming to an end, I think that's going to be, that's going to be a wrap for Resident Evil 7. I mean, I really don't have much to say. I don't have much left in the tank right now to be discussing any more of RE7. I think we're going to put it to a close. And if I ever get asked about it again, I'll definitely answer it, you know, if it comes down to questions on the show. But I wanted to just come on here real quick and do a little short review and discussion with the chat and everything like that. And the Rush agrees with what Perry said in the last show, saying RE8 needs to be third person with RE5 controls. Yeah, just make it, just do something, man. Fix third, whatever it may be. I don't care. Just do something like remake. Do something, you know, like you should have from the get-go. And, you know, yeah, Mr. Unlimax, I think I'm saying that right. Capcom will screw something up for sure. 100% sure they'll do something that will piss off fans. You know, I try to stay positive, you know, and a lot of times like this, it's not like, you know, Capcom's track record can be just swept clean and it's going to be different. But hopefully, I could put my faith in them enough to know that we can at least get something a little bit more solid next time around, or maybe Resident Evil 2 Remake will, you know, shake things up a bit and it'll be something different next time. Let's hope so. But anyway, that wraps up this little short, brief discussion on the Resident Evil 7 DLC. Thank you all for joining in on this little short discussion and coming in on giving some light on your opinion, so I wasn't alone on this show. So I wouldn't just be talking to myself and not having anyone to bounce stuff off of. So you guys were the backbone of the community, and you are the backbone of this specific episode, so thank you. I'm able to actually bounce my stuff off of your responses rather than repeating myself and, you know, doing all this stuff. The Sleeping said, make RE great again. We will, hopefully Resident Evil 2 will do something of that, you know, spark. By the way, I checked out the Game Bandit store you recommended. Cool place. Picked up SNES and Super Games there for $70. Great deal. I need more cash for them because, well, dude, hey, you know what? I'm really happy, deadass B, that you went there. That's cool that you're in the area. Yeah, I'm only about like 20-some minutes, you know, around there. So I'm really happy you checked it out, man. Yeah, they have great stuff. They also have great like movies too. They have a lot of movies there that are just like sitting there, you know, being discounted. So it's always cool. Adam said, my question is, where the fuck is the love for RE3? I want RE3 remake, Imagine, Nemesis. I know, man. Let's just hope RE3 is some kind of like DLC for 2, or maybe 2 is great enough to where they could start doing RE3. But if it's taking them this long to get something of RE2, it makes RE3 more unlikely. As you know, RE3 is my favorite game. As sad as I am to say that, I don't know, like, you know, as sad as I am to say that, you know, it might not happen, I don't know. But yeah, thank you guys for coming in, and I really appreciate it. And one thing from Chris, he said, I'm hoping that RE2 Remake does well, and maybe we can get a new RE game after that remake that goes back to fixed cameras. I would love RE to go back to the old style. Well, it's never too late to go back and bring something and do something that people love. And I think that's what people really should focus on. In that company, is really focusing on what the fans want, and that's how you'll keep your franchise afloat. But thanks again, guys. Thank you so much. And if you're listening to this on iTunes, don't forget to download all these episodes for free on iTunes and Libsyn. Like the Let's Talk Resident Evil Facebook page, facebook.com/Let's Talk Resident Evil. And you can follow me on Twitter at Let's Talk_RE. And you can also download that podcast. Don't forget, Libsyn, iTunes, and Spotify. We are on Spotify. Yes, Spotify has podcasts now. We are on Spotify. Again, free downloads, and that's essentially it. So, yeah, just wanted to give you a little mini edition of the show, a little bite-sized edition for you. Nice little 45-minute segment here. But thank you all, and everyone else, have a good night, and I'll see you in the next discussion. Stay tuned. And keep on the lookout for some reviews, streams, and more. See ya.